how's it going? Welcome back to another great video with the majestic host, the Savior. And I'm pretty hyped for this one, I've got to say, and I'm quite surprised that no one is talking about Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, which is an interesting new RPG that's coming out very soon actually, but pretty much no one is talking about it. No one has said anything positive about this game. It seems like it's gonna fly under the radar, which is a shame because, you know, we haven't had a good story-focused RPG for a long time. So today I'm going to be giving you my Banishers Ghost of New Eden review, and I do hope you enjoy this video. It is based on the early access, so do bear that in mind. And if you are new to the channel, which is highly likely, do consider subscribing because it only takes you 2 seconds of your time, but it means absolutely everything to me. I cancelled all of my plans today so I could make this video for you guys, so it just means so much to me if you do support what I do, subscribe, like the video, join this amazing community. We're getting so close to 10,000 subscribers now, and it just means absolutely everything to me. Become a wise one. If you do like gaming content, early reviews, video essays, looking back at older games, deep analytical videos, or philosophical content, you've come to the right place. So do subscribe and consider supporting my music on Spotify. And if you do like my music, consider dropping a donation. And with that all out of the way, with that lovely shilling all done, let's get into the video.
Death to the dead.
Time and God have not yet healed.
There is no God here.
The Banisher sides with the living. You're needed. Not Banisher. Not living.
Will you come to her aid?
Come no closer!
Now, when all is lost. If you do, I'll be waiting.
So as nobody is exactly talking about Banishers Ghost of New Eden, what exactly is this game? Who is it made by? All of that jazz. I can talk about the hands-on stuff, so that's what I will be doing in this video, but I cannot show you any new gameplay, of course, until everything else drops. So as always, I've done my extensive research, so you don't have to. Basically, so you can find out if Banishers Ghost of New Eden is worth it. Should you buy Banishers Ghost of New Eden or not? That's what I hope to answer today in this video. Hey, you still watching that video? I forgot about retention. Smash the like button. 100,000 likes, okay? And you will win, maybe.
Take it back, take it back. Say hi, Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast. Mr. Breast. Mate, you
Mate.
plant another 20 million futile trees. Fertile. I hope they get deforested.
I forgot I need to remember that everything on YouTube now is the same because of Jimmy Beast over here. So smash the like button, okay? And you might actually win a Tesla, which comes with its own Tesla bot. And that Tesla bot can actually be your personal servant. This Tesla bot has the ability to slide anything up your rectum, so make sure you do subscribe. Now, believe it or not, Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is created by the same devs who made Vampire, and if you remember that game, it was another like AA hidden gem, I would say. The combat was rather clunky and rather basic, I would say, and it did lack some, you know, finer details that we do get from AAA games, but it had a lot more personality, a lot more charm compared to AAA games because of the fact it being made by this dev team, you know, Don't Nod. They also did Life is Strange. I do think that game kind of got a little bit too up its own arse at the end, but again, it's a nice story-driven game. And basically what they're doing is they're blending, you know, the kind of Telltale formula of that story-driven format, but then giving you choices, just like we got in the old Telltale games, like The Walking Dead, which I absolutely love. But they're now combining that kind of cinematic story game, which is rather boring as a game. Don't get me wrong, it's interesting as a story, but they're rather boring as video games. But now they're combining what they learned and actually making a proper RPG game along with it. And I feel like Vampire was the testing ground for this game here, because the combat here is just far more fleshed out. It's a lot better, it feels a lot more fluid, and it does feel truly like an RPG, almost to the same extent as The Witcher does, in a much smaller, refined game world. So the first positive of the Banishers Ghosts of New Eden review, I would say, is the fact that the moral choices that I've seen so far from the early gameplay, okay, it doesn't seem to be that black and white. A lot of these choice games, such as Fable or The Witcher, or the Telltale series, you know, these types of games give you very obvious choices, okay? It's not like a dynamic RPG like Fallout New Vegas or Baldur's Gate, where it doesn't really tell you exactly when choices are being made, and it makes it feel more organic. This is very heavily like, okay, there's a choice here, and you need to make it, kind of how The Witcher 3 handled it. And although that does make it feel a little bit gamey, and, you know, it's very obvious when you're kind of going down a different branch, I still do like that because it does really make you feel like, okay, they really put time and effort into these different branching, you know, pathways and stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing, but I do feel like a lot of these choice games, and like I said, it harkens back to the days of the original Fable games, which the combat, by the way, reminds me a lot of Fable, but they are very black and white, okay? You know, you're either gonna be very evil or you're gonna be very good. But with Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, I feel like they took the time and effort to actually, you know, put mature writing into this game, and not just like, you know, kind of make it lazy and easy to digest for the modern audience of, you know, okay, I'm gonna do something bad, I'm gonna eat a fetus, so therefore I'm bad. No, okay, it's a little bit more nuanced compared to some of the older games that we used to get in this type of subgenre of game, and I do appreciate that. So yes, sometimes it can be a little bit basic, like I'm going to cleanse this spirit or I'm going to destroy them, but the repercussions for the choices in this game actually do have proper consequences, and they aren't always as clear as, okay, now everyone loves you and you did a good thing. No, other people might see what you did as bad even if you thought it was good. So I really do like that perspective on the choice-based gameplay. The next positive is there is a spirit dimension in this game, and I really do love you know, this game mechanic, because it isn't really done at all in many games whatsoever. Recently, Lords of the Fallen was the first game to really bring it back, where, you know, you get these two world spaces on top of each other. Now, it's not as detailed, not as fleshed out as Lords of the Fallen was, and that game was a little bit mixed by some, especially in the Souls community, but I do feel like still they are implementing an interesting mechanic here, and this will involve dealing with puzzles and solving clues. Basically, the Witcher sense that you get in the Witcher games, you kind of get a spirit sense here, and then when you enter that mode, you can actually see the different environment around you. It also works in combat, which is actually very good, and I'm going to talk about that more later, but just as a world building mechanic and, you know, doing things like interacting with puzzles and stuff like that, it does keep the game feeling fresh, and I do like that idea of, you know, finding a hidden passageway that's, you know, kind of walled off, but then you enter a spirit dimension and then you can see it. You know, just playing with player perspective, I think that's really important to push for envelope. I really do love the aesthetic of this game as well, the 17th century, where it's grounded in realism, but it also has that spiritual kind of fantasy, darker vibe to it, and we don't get many dark fantasy games, and I do think that this is, you know, one that a lot of people will enjoy, but sadly not a lot of people will know about this. The next positive is this isn't going to be a bloated open world, okay? This is very much similar to games like Metro Exodus or Deus Ex, where it's very detailed, smaller open hubs that you can explore, and I think Avowed, a new RPG that's coming out soon, is going to do something similar. I personally love that type of gameplay style much more these days, because open world games have become a little bit of a chore, especially the ones that follow the Ubisoft design approach. But this one, like I said, it's very dense, it's very detailed, and although it's not exactly linear, it does have these, you know, open sections for you to explore, but they are a lot smaller and they usually have a lot more things that you can interact with. The next positive, which is quite a surprising one, I would say, is the fact that the facial animations in this do actually look to be pretty good, I would say, especially for a AA release. Just the graphical style in general seems to look good. The combat does seem a little bit on the janky side, and I will talk about that more, but so far, just from the story perspective of the gameplay, it does look like these character models look to be relatively well done. So now let's talk about the bonfire mechanic, and I'm sure a lot of people will be comparing this to Dark Souls, okay, which is quite funny. I see a fire, therefore it's Dark Souls. But no, I do feel like they did borrow some of it from Dark Souls, to be honest, but it's a nice gameplay mechanic, and I just like the fact that it's limited on HUD, and it feels like an immersive world space, and that's very important, especially for me, because I'm very sensitive to this type of bloat in modern day gaming, and I really like the fact that it's going for a more, visceral approach to immersion, and I do like the fact that all of this stuff can be basically done at the bonfire. So you even have things like ring slots, which of course for any Souls fan you will know that's a big deal, and these other equipment slots for, different things that will give you stat bonuses and all that kind of stuff. I thought this game was going to be mainly focused on story choices, consequences and stuff like that, but actually it is very much trying to be a combat third-person RPG as well. So I really do like that. The combat here, I will talk about more. It's not the best, but it is passable, I would say. And the fact that it's focused on the RPG stat, gameplay, to me that is very important, because that is what really makes an RPG. And the fact that they really pay attention to that stuff, and the abilities, the perk tree, all that kind of stuff is here, and I would say it's pretty well done. You can fast travel from the bonfire, so again, it's very immersive when you're just traveling on foot. You can't just do it instantaneously, which I like. And upgrading and getting new abilities are actually rather limited, so it does actually make these abilities worthwhile instead of just being random stat bonuses. Of course, that comes with finding gear and all that kind of stuff. But I do feel like they did do a perfect balance of, feeling like you are progressing. And the combat here is not like the most difficult thing in the world, but it is still rather difficult. The only slight negative is the actual perk tree itself is rather generic, and I'm just so tired of games just following the same boring route of, going up a perk tree. That's how you level up, that's how you feel progression. There is so many more inventive ways, instead of just allocating perk points to a skill tree and stuff like that. To me, it's just very old at this point, and there needs to be more tactile ways of implementing like player progression in the game world, even if it's just getting better loot that actually impacts the world around you and the combat itself. Okay, so now let's talk about the combat. So the combat is a little bit of a mixture of the recent God of War games. It's not so much a Souls-like, there is a dodge roll in it, and yes, there are boss battles, but it's not really a Souls-like gameplay experience. But what it does remind me of actually is the kind of older Fable games, a much more difficult version of the Fable games, because you will be mixing swordplay here with magical elements and magical combat moves and stuff like that, and you have actual goddamn machine gun, okay? And like I said, I really do like the fact that they're mixing the combat with this kind of realistic 17th century aesthetic, but with dark fantasy elements. So the only slight negative with the combat here is it does feel a little bit janky at times, a little bit unresponsive, and the animations at times with your own character just looks to be a little bit just janky, okay? Like, just the movement of the animation, stuff like that, and the hit detection, all of that stuff just feels a little bit floaty to me, but it does look to be very serviceable, and like I said, with the abilities and the upgrades and the stat allocation, it will make it satisfying, although not the most challenging game. And I wish they kind of leaned into that difficulty more, because that would actually make the combat a little bit more satisfying. But it's not bad, okay? It's much better than the vampire combat system. Basically, you have this red attack bar, and then you have this blue kind of spiritual attack bar. And I really do like the fact that they are implementing a new way to engage with the combat system here, so you can't just spam as one character, because by the way, you are constantly switching between two characters, because one is in the spirit dimension and one is in the grounded, like, human dimension. So basically, one will focus on magic attacks and one will focus more on physical damage. So I really do like that, and it will depend on the enemy type and how often you have to switch between the two characters to basically get the best possible damage in. And yeah, I do think that's a pretty cool mechanic, but I'm a little bit worried that it will get stale over time. And finally, I just have to say that the voice acting seems to be pretty good so far from what I've seen, and the writing as well seems to be good. So I just hope this doesn't go under the radar. I don't think it's going to be a massive hit, and I don't think it's doing anything absolutely groundbreaking, but I do like the fact that we are getting more choices and consequences, a proper RPG with story consequences, even if the gameplay itself is a little bit lacking, a little bit jarring and janky at times, especially with the combat. But if you look past that and you get into the world space, because the art style here is good, the music here is good, the voice acting here is good, and the story most of the time, from what I've seen, is a hit. Although I do have the feeling that it does potentially miss at some points, because it might sometimes lean in a little bit to the good guy, bad guy dynamic, and a little bit of pandering, because that's just like the writing developer team behind this. So I do hope you enjoyed this Banishers Ghosts of New Eden review. I really just am a sucker for games with choices and consequences. You know, those are my favorite types of games. That's what I grew up on. You know, games like Fallout, Fable, and just that type of experience to me is far more rewarding, because that's the whole point of games, you know, having level design and story choices and consequences. You can't get that in any type of media. That's what makes this media stand above everything else, if you ask me. And I think that's what we need to lean in more. We don't need to focus on cinematic, slow story games to make a good story, okay? I'm really tired of that modern day trope of, you know, the modern God of War or The Last of Us, stuff like that, where it just feels more like a movie. At least this is actually trying to be a game as well, and I do have to appreciate that. So I do hope you are maybe considering getting this, but it's up to you. So let me know if you are going to get Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, and please do subscribe if you did like this early review. It would mean a lot. And yeah, I just hope that this review of Banishers Ghosts of New Eden helped you decide if you will get it or not, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace out.